Our commitment to Israel's security and my commitment to Israel's security is and always will be unshakable. Iran must not, under any circumstances, be allowed to get a nuclear weapon.
I grew up in an Ireland that was mean-spirited and small-minded and had these terrible vestiges of the past, of a church that controlled the morals of the country and of an administration that executed that. And any opportunity I have to change that, to liberalise it, to move away from it, I'll gladly relish it.
On the past 2 days, we met with Cuban officials to discuss the reestablishment of diplomatic relations between the United States and Cuba. This round of talks was highly productive. We will persist, inspired by the conviction that engagement and not isolation are the keys to moving forward.
The FBI has asked that a portion of one email be held back. That happens in the process of Freedom of Information Act responses. But that doesn't change the fact that all of the information in the emails was handled appropriately.
Last week's brutal quadruple homicide of Savas Savopoulos, a wealthy Washington, D.C. businessman, his wife, their young son, plus their housekeeper at their multi-million-dollar Washington home. The suspect is 34-year-old Darren Dylan Wint. Police identified Wint through DNA that was found on a slice of pizza crust inside the home.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Rick Blackwell in for Ed Berliner. Tremendous work by firefighters and police officers. With the house burning, someone was smart enough to secure the pizza box, knowing it could be a key piece of evidence. It actually led directly to the suspect, Darren Dylan Wint. That's why the Savopoulos family, mourning the loss of 3 of its members, thanked law enforcement and firefighters in a statement today. They also said about the arrest of Wint, "We hope this restores a sense of calm and security to the community." Let's bring in criminal defense attorney Geoffrey Nathan and Dr. Larry Kobilinsky, the chairman of the Department of Science at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And Dr. Kobilinsky, to be honest, I've never heard of food breaking a case. Do investigators commonly look for pizza or other items at crime scenes?
Actually, they do. It's well known that burglars will sometimes enter a home and find items to drink or eat. You'll find fingerprints and DNA left on glasses that they drink out of, or orange juice containers, or beverage cans, or they'll take a bite out of an apple or have some cheese. In this particular case, Wint was hungry for pizza, and he was clever enough, perhaps, to protect his hands. He probably wore gloves so that he wouldn't leave fingerprints, but he sure left a bite mark. And evidence collection teams know that you can collect not only that bite mark, but the saliva deposited with that bite mark. And that has a great deal of DNA. This is another example of how DNA can solve cases quickly. And once they have Wint, I'm sure that, good investigation will lead to other things. There may be accomplices. There may be people who are aiding and abetting. We'll know a lot more about this heinous case once they sit him down and start interrogating him.
Well, Geoffrey, as a defense attorney, I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of cases involving DNA. Is this pretty much a slam dunk now? Will the prosecution be using this DNA evidence? Or if you were attorney, for example, for Mr. Wint, what would you be doing to try to protect him and to make sure that he isn't found guilty?
Well, the DNA evidence, of course, is only one side of the story, and it does not suggest as to when the DNA evidence was put in the house or whether or not it was in fact planted by the police, who had a specific agenda to go after the defendant for something that they think he did. And so you've got both chain of custody issues, and then you've got to go after the reliability of that DNA. I mean, who's going to do that testing on it? What's their qualifications? And what's the chain of custody like? And so the defense has a myriad of opportunities to go after bad evidence, and we can make bad evidence good defense work, and that's what we do in this business.
Dr. Kobilinsky, take us into headquarters. So they get the pizza box. Obviously, they're rushing in. The house is on fire. They get the pizza. How does that work then? Do they then go against the DNA database? How does this all work out?
Well, you're absolutely right in pointing to the database as being the critical element here. Many years ago, the FBI established what is called CODIS, the combined DNA indexing system, which is a three-tiered system. There's a local database that counties usually operate, there's a state database, and there's a national database. And currently, there's about 12 million people on that database. Now, when you have a piece of evidence and you are able to obtain a genetic profile, that's another way of saying 15 loci or genetic sites worth of information. 15 loci will give you 30 genes. That means that we have 30 pieces of information as to the source of the DNA. If you take that data in the form of numbers and upload it to CODIS, it will come back, and it will give you either the name of a convicted felon that matches, or it will link this crime to another crime. That's the way these databases work with built-in algorithms. So bottom line is, this is the beginning of the investigation, not the end. And I think DNA is the gold standard. It's considered reliable and admissible in the courts. They also have a timeline as to when the pizza was ordered. So there's more to it than just finding pizza with the DNA of Mr. Wint. There's a lot of information that ties that pizza box to the perpetrator of this heinous quadruple homicide.
And Geoffrey, a big part of this, too, is the motive. We're finding out that Wint actually may have worked with one of the victims. Talk about the motives in this case. What do we know so far?
Well, the motive of monetary gain, of course, is one of the driving motives of most crimes in the United States. And so it's very difficult for the defense to go and attack that. When you've got a sack of money being delivered, you kind of got the guy on a hook, and you may want to start thinking about some sort of a plea bargain when we stack up both that DNA we're talking about together with a ransom, plus this guy's got a heck of a criminal record behind him, so the likelihood of him taking the stand to defend himself when he would just be cross-examined on that prior criminal record, that isn't going to happen. And so you really have to start winding up the clock to tee it up for a plea bargain real quick. That's what I would do if I was his lawyer.
Dr. Kobilinsky, it does look like it's teed up right now for prosecutors, investigators, but Geoffrey even mentioned it earlier. They're going to be checking as far as the truthfulness and the effectiveness of the methods of people that are testing the DNA. What right now inside these Washington, D.C. investigators are they doing to make sure that, all their I's are dotted and the T's are crossed? Well,
what the public doesn't see is that when they tell you there's DNA work being done, there's a stack of paper probably any place from an inch to 3 inches thick. There are a lot of I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed. All the methodology has to be very carefully done. There are protocols. There are not only analysts, but second readers. There's technical oversight. There's administrative oversight. All of these procedures go through validation studies. This is not a simple thing of saying, well, the numbers line up and they match, and this is probably the person. There's a lot of solid scientific foundation here. And as I said, it's the gold standard. No other kind of evidence. For example, I mentioned bite mark evidence. Bite mark evidence is very minimal in terms of significance as compared to DNA. So the prosecutor's got a solid case. Quite frankly, if I were the prosecutor, I don't know if I would even entertain a plea bargain, because we're talking about murder one, where a child 10 years old was apparently tortured. There's a lot of public concern here. So I think that the defense is going to have a tough time. I work with many defense attorneys, and I know that they're excellent and they do a great professional job. This is a case that prosecutors are going to love.
All right, that's Dr. Lawrence Kobilinsky. We really appreciate it. And Geoffrey Nathan coming to us from Boston, Massachusetts. Obviously, it looks like, again, we've got the motive, we've got the DNA evidence, but I know those investigators in Washington, D.C. are continuing to work hard on this case, and we hope to have updates for you on Newsmax TV. To both of our guests, thank you very much. Have a fabulous weekend. We appreciate your insights today. And again, Larry Kobilinsky and Geoffrey Nathan joining us right here on Newsmax TV. When we return, who's ready to dive into 296 Hillary Clinton emails released today? Two fantastic guests. They are straight ahead on the Hardline. I'm Rick Blackwell, in for Ed Berliner.